What happens when a legend like Morgan Freeman, a man whose voice carries the weight of 1,000 stories, steps onto a stage expecting respect but gets ambushed instead? You're about to hear a story that left a studio audience in tears, a host speechless, and the internet on fire. This wasn't just a talk show gone wrong. It was a moment that showed the world who Morgan Freeman really is. Stick around because by the end, you'll see a side of him that'll hit you right in the heart. So picture this. It's a crisp fall evening in Chicago, the kind where the wind off Lake Michigan makes you pull your coat a little tighter. Morgan Freeman's in town to promote his new movie, a passion project he poured his soul into. He's set to appear on the Windy City Live, a popular late-night show hosted by a guy named Jack Riley. Everyone's expecting the usual, some laughs, a few stories, maybe a clip from the film. But what happened that night? It was anything but usual. Morgan walked onto that stage, and within minutes, the whole room felt like it was holding its breath. Morgan Freeman steps onto the Windy City Live stage, and the Chicago crowd loses it. His smile's warm, his walk steady, like he's carrying the wisdom of every role he's ever played. He shakes hands with Jack Riley, the host, and settles into the guest chair. The lights are bright, the band's still buzzing from the intro music, and for a moment, everything feels right. Jack starts easy, asking Morgan about his new movie, a story about a small-town preacher fighting to save his community. "This one's personal," Morgan says, his voice low and rich. "I grew up in Greenwood, Mississippi, where folks leaned on faith and grit. That's what this film's about, holding on when the world's falling apart." The audience claps, moved by his words. But then Jack leans forward, his grin turning sharp. "Come on, Morgan," he says. "You're a Hollywood icon now, living in a mansion out in Malibu. Isn't it kind of hard to play the small-town guy when you're flying private jets?" The crowd goes quiet. You can feel the air shift, like someone just opened a window in a warm room. Morgan's eyes narrow, but he keeps his cool. "Jack," he says, "I don't forget where I came from. Greenwood's in my bones. Every role I take, I carry that with me." Jack doesn't let up. He chuckles, but it's not friendly. "Sure, but let's be real. Your life's nothing like those folks in Mississippi anymore. Don't you think it's a bit disconnected to lean into that story when you're worth millions?" The audience shifts in their seats, uneasy. This isn't the fun banter they came for. Morgan pauses, his face steady but his jaw tight. "I'm here to talk about the work, Jack," he says, voice firm. "Not to have my life put on trial. I've never pretended to be anything I'm not." The tension's thick now, like a storm rolling in over Lake Michigan. Jack's smile falters, but he doubles down. "I'm just saying, Morgan, people look up to you. Don't you owe it to them to be honest about how far you've come? Or is that small-town preacher just a role you're selling?" A few gasps ripple through the crowd. Morgan leans back, his gaze locked on Jack, and you can tell he's weighing his next words carefully. "Honesty," he says, slow and deliberate. "I've spent my life being honest. Maybe you should try asking a question that's not just chasing a headline. Whoa, has a talk show moment ever made you feel like you were watching a train wreck unfold? Drop a comment below and let me know what you think about this so far. And if you're hooked, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started." The Windy City Live studio feels like it's holding its breath. Morgan Freeman's words, "Maybe you should try asking a question that's not just chasing a headline," hang in the air like a challenge. Jack Riley's face twitches, caught off guard. He's used to guests who play along, who laugh off his jabs. But Morgan's not budging. The Chicago crowd's eyes are glued to the stage, some leaning forward, others whispering to their neighbors. You can almost hear the hum of the studio lights. It's that quiet. Jack recovers, but his grin's gone cold. "Look, Morgan," he says, leaning closer. "I'm not trying to start a fight. I'm just asking what a lot of folks are thinking. You're out there playing these down-to-earth characters, but you're living a life most of us can't even dream of. Doesn't that ever feel fake to you?" The word fake lands like a slap. A lady in the front row covers her mouth, shocked. Morgan's expression doesn't crack, but you can see the fire in his eyes, steady and deep, like a man who's faced worse and come out stronger. Fake, Morgan repeats, his voice low, almost a whisper, but it carries the weight of a lifetime. Jack, I was a kid in Greenwood, Mississippi, sharing a two-room house with six of us, no running water some days. I clawed my way up, not by pretending, but by working. Every dollar I've got, I earned. And every story I tell, every preacher, every driver, every soul I play, it's real to me, because I have lived it. The audience erupts in applause, some even standing, their cheers a mix of pride and defiance. Morgan's not just defending himself. He's speaking for everyone who's ever been doubted. But Jack doesn't back down. He shifts in his chair like a boxer sizing up his next punch. That's a great story, Morgan, he says, his tone dripping with sarcasm. But come on, man. You are not in Greenwood anymore. You're sipping wine in Malibu, rubbing elbows with billionaires. Isn't it a little convenient to pull out the hard times card when you're selling a movie? The crowd boos softly, a ripple of anger spreading. Morgan tilts his head, studying Jack like he's seeing him for the first time. You know what's convenient, Jack? He says, his voice steady as steel. Hiding behind a microphone, picking fights with people who came here in good faith. I came to talk about a film that means something to me. You're just trying to make noise. The producer's waving frantically from the sidelines, slicing his hand across his throat, signaling to cut to commercial. But Jack ignores him, his eyes locked on Morgan. I'm doing my job, he snaps. People want the truth, not some polished Hollywood act. Morgan leans forward now, his voice dropping even lower, every word deliberate. The truth? The truth is, Jack, you invited me here under false pretenses. You said this was about the movie. If you wanted a debate, you should have been man enough to say so up front. The crowd gasps, then cheers louder, some shouting Morgan's name. It's not just a talk show anymore. It's a showdown. Have you ever seen someone get ambushed like that, where you just wanted to jump up and cheer for them? Tell me in the comments what you'd have done if you were in that audience. And if you're feeling this story, hit that subscribe button to catch what happens next. This is about to get wild. The Windy City Live studio is a powder keg ready to blow. Morgan Freeman's words, if you wanted a debate, you should have been man enough to say so up front, ring out, and the Chicago crowd's on its feet, cheering like they're at a hometown football game. Jack Riley's face flushes red, his cool guy act crumbling under Morgan's steady gaze. The producer's practically sprinting to the stage's edge, waving both arms to signal a commercial break. But Jack's not done. He leans in, voice sharp as a knife. You think you can just waltz in here, Morgan, and lecture me on my own show? This is my stage, and I ask the real questions. Morgan doesn't flinch. He sits back, hands folded, his calm like a river running deep. Real questions? He says, his voice soft but cutting. You're not asking questions, Jack. You're putting on a show, trying to tear me down to make yourself look big. I came here to talk about a film that's about hope, about people fighting for what's right. You're fighting for clicks. The crowd roars, some clapping, others yelling, "Preach!" An older man in the back wipes a tear, nodding like Morgan's speaking straight to his soul. Jack's jaw clenches and he snaps, "Don't act like you're above this, Morgan. You're selling a movie, not saving the world. You're as much a performer as I am." That's when Morgan's eyes flash, not with anger, but with something deeper, disappointment. I perform on screen, Jack, he says, each word measured. But when the cameras stop, I'm still me. Always have been. Can you say that? Or is this? He gestures to the stage, the lights, the crowd. All you've got? The audience gasps, then cheers louder, the sound shaking the studio walls. The producer finally gets through, and the screen cuts to commercial, a jarring ad for car insurance that feels absurd after the heat of that moment. Backstage, it's chaos. Staffers are whispering, some stunned, others sneaking glances at Morgan, who's still seated, calm as ever, while Jack rips off his mic and storms toward the wings. Who does he think he is? Jack hisses to a producer, loud enough for nearby crew to hear. This is my show. Morgan stands slowly, handing his mic to a nervous assistant. I'm done here, he says quietly, but there's a weight to it, like he's closing a door for good. As he heads backstage, a young staffer, barely out of college, catches his eye. Mr. Freeman, she whispers, that was incredible. I've never seen anyone stand up to him like that. Morgan gives her a small nod, his smile kind but tired. Sometimes you gotta stand for what's right, he says, even when it's hard. The crowd's still buzzing, unaware that Morgan's not coming back. But you can feel it. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. Ever had a moment where you had to stand up for yourself, even when it felt like the whole room was against you? Share it in the comments. I want to hear your stories. And if you're gripped on this, hit that subscribe button, because Morgan's about to show what he's really made of. Backstage at the Windy City Live, the air's so thick you could cut it with a knife, like Chicago in the dead of summer before a storm breaks. Morgan Freeman's words, I'm done here, still hang heavy as he moves toward the exit, his steps slow but deliberate, carrying the weight of a man who's just drawn a line in the sand. The young staffer who called him incredible is still standing there, her hands trembling, eyes wide like she's just seen a preacher part the seas. Around her, the crew's buzzing, some whispering in awe, others sneaking glances at Morgan, their phones already lighting up with texts about what just went down. But Jack Riley? He's a different story. He stormed into the green room, slamming the door so hard the walls shake, his voice booming through the thin walls. He can't do this to me, he shouts, his usual slick charm gone, replaced by raw panic. This is my show. A producer tries to calm him, voice low and urgent. Jack, we've got 10 minutes to get you back out there. The audience is waiting, and we've got another guest. But Jack's not hearing it. He's pacing like a caged animal, face beat red, muttering he thinks he's untouchable. I'll show him. Morgan, meanwhile, reaches the studio's back door, where the cold Lake Michigan breeze slips through the cracks, sharp and biting. His hands on the handle, ready to step out into the night, to leave this mess behind and let the paparazzi chase someone else. But something stops him, a flicker of resolve, like a memory of his grandmother's voice back in Greenwood, Mississippi, telling him, boy, you don't run from what's right. He turns, his jaw set, and heads straight for Jack's dressing room. The crew parts like a wave, their whispers trailing him. Is he serious? He's going back? A stagehand, an older guy with gray in his beard, shakes his head in disbelief, muttering, that's a man with a spine. Morgan knocks on the dressing room door 3 times, firm but measured, each rap echoing like a gavel. Jack, he calls, his voice low but steady. We need to talk, man to man, no cameras, no games. Inside, Jack freezes mid-rant, his producer and head writer exchanging nervous glances. The executive producer, a wiry guy in a suit, steps forward, trying to block the door. Mr. Freeman, this isn't a good time. Maybe we can... Morgan cuts him off, his gaze never wavering. I didn't ask you, he says, calm but unyielding, like a mountain standing against the wind. This is between me and Jack. A long, heavy pause follows, the kind that makes your heart pound. Then the door swings open and there's Jack, tie loosened, eyes burning with a mix of anger and fear. 5 minutes, he snaps, waving his team out like they're kids caught in a grown-up fight. The door shuts with a soft click, and it's just the two of them now. No lights, no audience, just raw truth in a cramped room that smells faintly of coffee and sweat. Morgan starts, his voice steady but laced with a quiet fire. I gave 2 years of my life to this film, Jack. It's about people like the ones I knew in Greenwood, folks who prayed through hunger, who fought for hope when the world said no. I came here to share that story, to lift people up. You turned it into a cheap circus, poking at my life like it's your personal punching bag. Jack scoffs, crossing his arms, trying to reclaim control. Don't play the martyr, Morgan. This show's about real talk, not your Hollywood sob story. You just couldn't handle a tough question. Morgan steps closer, his presence filling the room, his eyes locking onto Jack's like a father about to teach a hard lesson. Real talk? He says, voice dropping low, every word heavy with meaning. You didn't want real. You wanted a fight, a soundbite to go viral, something to make you look like the big man. But you know what I see, Jack? He pauses, letting the silence press down like a weight. I see a man so scared of losing a hit of spotlight, he's forgotten how to listen, how to respect. Jack's face twitches, a crack in his polished facade. For a split second, you see it. Doubt, maybe even shame, flickering in his eyes like a candle about to go out. But he shakes it off, his voice rising, desperate. You think you're better than me? You're just an actor, Morgan, playing parts for applause. Don't lecture me about respect. Morgan doesn't raise his voice, but his words cut deeper than any shout. I play parts, Jack, but I live truth. I've carried Greenwood with me every step. Every night we went to bed hungry. Every dream I had to claw for. Every time I was told I wasn't enough. You're hiding behind this show, afraid to be real, afraid to face yourself. And deep down, you know it. The words hit like a thunderbolt, shaking the room. Jack's mouth opens, but no sound comes out. His hands tremble, his confidence shattered, like a man staring into a mirror he can't stand to see. Morgan turns to leave, his hand on the doorknob, but he pauses, looking back one last time. You can keep your stage, Jack, he says, voice soft but piercing. I've got my truth, and that's more than enough. I hope one day you find yours. He steps out, leaving Jack alone, staring at the floor, his breath ragged. Outside, the crew's silent, some wiping tears, others standing straighter, like they've just witnessed something sacred. A young assistant, her voice barely a whisper, says to a coworker, I've never seen anything like that. He's a giant. Morgan's not just a star tonight. He's a beacon, a man who stood tall when the world tried to pull him down. Have you ever seen someone speak a truth so raw it made your heart ache? Maybe a time when someone stood up and said what everyone else was too scared to say? Drop it in the comments. I'm reading everyone, and I know you've got stories that'll hit us hard. If this moment gave you chills like it did me, smash that subscribe button. Because Morgan's story isn't over yet. Morgan Freeman walks out of Jack Riley's dressing room, head high, like a man who's just stood his ground and won. The Windy City Live crew stares in awe, some wiping tears. A gray-haired stagehand mutters, "That's courage." Morgan passes the green room, where young singer Lila Carter, nervous and clutching note cards, asks, "Is it always this intense?" Morgan's smile is warm, steady. "Just be you, Lila," he says. "That's all they can't take." She nods, braver now. At the studio's back exit, the Lake Michigan wind bites as paparazzi swarm. "What happened, Mr. Freeman?" one shouts. "Watch the show," he says, climbing into his SUV, the Chicago skyline glowing behind him. He calls his publicist. It's done, and lets the night settle. Inside, Jack Riley's back on stage, his smile forced. "Welcome back. Morgan had to step away," he says, but the crowd's skeptical, murmuring, some shaking their heads. A silver-haired woman whispers, "He tried to break a giant and fell." Jack's jokes flop, and Lila's song can't lift the heavy air. Backstage, Jack snaps at a producer. "Why didn't anyone warn me?" The producer sighs. "You went off script, Jack." A crew member mutters, "He only fights who he thinks he can beat." The studio feels empty, respect for Jack fading. By morning, social media is ablaze. Twitter posts scream, "Morgan Freeman owned Jack Riley." A TikTok of Morgan's exit goes viral with comments like, "Legend." Older fans on Facebook share prideful posts, one from an Illinois firefighter. "Morgan spoke for us all, God bless him." Morgan's already moved on, at home with coffee, reading scripts. His wife asks, "You okay?" He chuckles, "I've faced worse." His phone pings with messages. "You showed us how to stand up." Morgan's humble, but his eyes shine with quiet pride. He didn't plan to be a hero, but that night, he was. Ever seen someone's courage make you want to be braver? Share it in the comments. I'm reading everyone. If Morgan's stand hit you, hit that subscribe button for more stories that'll touch your heart. Weeks later, Morgan Freeman's stand on the Windy City Live still burns bright across America, a beacon of truth in a world quick to tear you down. On his Malibu porch, the Pacific Ocean glowing under a pink sunrise, Morgan reads fan letters. A grandmother in Ohio writes, "You gave me courage at 78." A Texas vet says, "You stood like a soldier." A Chicago teen scrawls, "You're my hero." Morgan's eyes mist up, his silence heavy with humility. A man who found the spotlight by being real. In Chicago, the Windy City Live feels hollow. Jack Riley hosts, but his smiles are forced, his voice thin. The crew's quiet, some whispering Morgan's name with reverence. An old stagehand tells a rookie, "Morgan's unbreakable." Jack couldn't touch him. Ratings slip, PR spins fail, but social media roars. Morgan showed what a real man is. A Chicago pastor posts, thousands sharing. Morgan's film about a small-town preacher breaks box office records driven by his truth. At an Atlanta screening, an older woman sobs, "That's Morgan's heart." Applause echoes to Greenwood, Mississippi, his roots. Morgan shrugs off hero talk. "I just said what I felt," he tells his wife. The ocean breeze soft. Jack alone in his Chicago apartment. Scrolls Twitter, stung by posts like, "Jack got schooled." He's lost his shine, exposed as the man who tried to dim a legend. This was more than a talk show clash. Morgan, rooted in Greenwood, showed truth as a shield, whether in a church or Hollywood. It's why people cry, pray, and share his story. It's their victory, too. When's the last time someone's courage lit a fire in you? Share in the comments. I'm reading every one. If Morgan's stand moved you, hit that subscribe button for more heartfelt stories.